There's a strategy that right now is completely taking over the YouTube educational space. First, you find a video that blew up. You copy the format and then you execute it in your niche. It's called outlier ideation, and on the surface, it makes sense, but it doesn't work. I created 127 real YouTube videos across 57 educational niches, and each of these are the exact same video idea. And here are the results. Look, many of them flopped, but a few blew up and one even broke into the millions of views. And none of this was random. Every result on this chart, every single one, comes down to just 4 things. Let's start at the bottom of the chart. We have Amazon FBA, Amazon KDP, eBay reselling, and Pinterest marketing. These weren't bad videos. The scripting was good, the production was fine, but something far more basic broke down. There's a guy called Eugene Schwartz. He spent decades figuring out why people buy things, and far more importantly, why they don't. And what he found is that every single person goes through 5 stages before they're ready to act on anything. Those stages have names. The first is problem unaware, and this is when they don't know they have a problem yet. We then move to problem aware, where they do know they have something wrong, but they don't quite know what to do about it. We then move on to solution aware. They know options exist, but they're still trying to figure out which one to go for. And then there's product aware. So they know their path, but they're just waiting for the right opportunity. Content only works when it meets the viewer at the stage they are actually at. And this is why the videos at the bottom of this chart actually failed. They were explaining how to do things to viewers who never really wanted to do it. The video assumed that the viewers were further along than they actually were. And so no matter how good the videos actually were, they completely flatlined. They landed nowhere. Now let's move up the chart. Many of these videos got the first filter right, but some of these numbers are still flat. And just above them, we have videos hitting 3, 4, and even 5 times their average viewership. Now remember, this is on the same video idea. And so what is happening on YouTube is that there is this tension that every single video lives inside. But if it's far too different, then they'll also just scroll away. It doesn't match anything they've seen before, and so they have no trust. They'll just click on something far safer. And so that sweet spot is a promise the viewer knows they want, but delivered through a completely different frame. So it needs to be familiar enough to trust, but fresh enough to be worth their time. What you're ultimately trying to do here is to carefully destroy their worldview. You want them to think that there is something wrong with the way they see things, and that there are stakes if they don't figure out what that is. Every time you create a video idea, you need to plot that tension carefully. The question is not about topics, it's not about promises or mechanisms, but at this point, the question is about your unique perspective and whether the viewer trusts it and cares about it. This seems like a subtle shift, but on the exact same channel, this is the difference between a 1.4x outlier and a 6x. And now we get into the fun stuff. The 4 to 8x outlier band. These videos have cleared both filters. The promise is clear, the angle is fresh, and they got traction. But then they plateaued. Now, the best way for me to explain why is if we look at the fitness niche. 10 years ago, the promise of losing weight fast was enough to build a channel off of. But then the audience heard it thousands of times, and so they moved on. The claim that eventually began to work was much more specific. A particular diet or a particular method, maybe something that felt counterintuitive. That then got absorbed too, and now the content working in the fitness space isn't really about weight loss anymore. It's now about living longer. It's about reducing your biological age. The desire of losing weight fast didn't go anywhere, but it just evolved. And this happens in every single niche. The audience absorbs a level of content, and so that content stops working on them. Stage 1 is the base. It's losing weight, making money, or getting views on YouTube. Stage 2 is the result, but with a specific constraint attached. Lose weight without doing cardio, get views on YouTube without posting every day. And then stage 3 is when you name a system behind it. It's an interesting mechanism to achieve that with. It's getting YouTube views using Claude AI, or it's losing weight with just a 10-minute morning routine. And so these performers on this chart, they got the promise right, and they got the angle right, but they were pitching one sophistication level below where the audience actually was. If I started YouTube in 2026, I would do this. That title is a stage 1 claim in a stage 3 niche for a stage 3 audience. Viewers have heard this promise countless times before, and so what they now need is a specific mechanism to put more trust behind that promise. And so before you make any videos, you need to know what sophistication level your target audience is already at. Because if the top performers in your niche are all pushing stage 3 content and you're stuck on stage 1, then you're just going to be invisible. And perhaps the promise you're pitching actually isn't even desirable anymore. To a valuable audience, getting views on YouTube doesn't really matter. They don't care about that anymore. What does now matter is getting a smaller amount of views who are far more qualified. The promise has completely shifted, and now we're back at the start of that stage. Now we're onto the top of the chart. This is where we have the SaaS startup with the 25.4x outlier, immigration law at 14x, e-commerce brand building at 15x. These have all cleared the first 3 filters, but there is another dynamic going on here, something that we haven't mentioned yet. I want to show you Daniel Darlin. In early 2024, a 26-year-old posted a YouTube video with a relatively unusual title, and within months, 50,000 subscribers. Hundreds of people instantly began to copy his format, the lowercase titles and the POV framing, but none of it worked. And I mean that. I do not know a single creator from that time who is still around today. And it's because what they were copying was the surface. The 3 things we mentioned before in this video. But the surface isn't why these videos in particular were such big outliers. What those channels couldn't copy is that Daniel lives a very different life. He works with a team in China and Dubai. He builds businesses from high-rise offices most viewers can't even go. He shoots inside factories in China which viewers couldn't even dream of seeing. Look, this isn't about content anymore. This is about his life. It's about the card. It's about the specific things that actually make his perspective different and interesting. These aren't one-off cards. These aren't things he cashes in for a single video. He has a hand of cards that he can play video after video without them being boring. And all he has to do is keep up with the first 3 filters and play those cards every single video. And here is what this chart doesn't show you yet. Every one of these creators has a specific life, a specific hand of cards that they can play. It could be the business they have built and the client case studies they have access to, maybe the geographic location, a cross-platform audience, or just simply capital access, money to throw at videos. Some can talk about their topics for hours at a time because they have an ingrained toolkit for doing so due to the fact they've been doing it for years. And so when you look at every blow-up video on this chart, every single one had a set of advantages that perfectly lined up with this format. And if you look at every flop, none of them do. For this video, I used the if I started X in 2026 format. And like every other format, it has a very specific set of expectations buried inside that wording. It first needs proof that you've actually done the thing. It needs credibility to feel lived in. It also needs the viewer to believe that the creator has genuinely been where the viewer wants to be. Without any of these things, the format is just a shell, and it will not land. And so this is why outlier ideation does not work in 2026. But to succeed in 2026, you need to find videos to copy which have advantages that perfectly align with yours. So if we go back to this chart, every result is now fully explained. Nothing here is luck, and nothing here can't be done in any other niche.